Welcome to another amazing episode of Point of View. I'm Pastor Josh Barnes, and this is the show where we look at political, cultural, social, and theological issues from a biblical point of view. We do that because Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead. Now, we can demonstrate that, but if you're a Christian, you should already believe that. And if Jesus really rose from the dead, then the Bible is true because he said so. And then he rose from the dead to prove that what he was saying was true. And so if the Bible is true, then we can't be right about political, social, cultural, or theological issues if we aren't biblical. Or if we disagree with the Bible, we got to be wrong if the Bible's right. Right? So that's the premise of the show. The point of this episode is to deal with something that's been in the news recently. And that is the end times beast that has emerged according to a few articles. Let me show you a picture of this. This is a leopardish thing that has been erected, and some are saying that this is the end times beast. I read to you from thechristianpost.com. New UN sculpture resembles end times beast described in Revelation. A new giant statue installed outside the United Nations headquarters in Manhattan, New York City is being likened to an end times beast, described by the Apostle John in Revelation 13:2. A guardian for international peace and security sits on the visitors plaza outside UN headquarters. The guardian is a fusion of jaguar and eagle and donated by the government of Oaxaca, Mexico. It is created by artists Jacobo and Maria Angelis. The UN says in a tweet that includes a photo of the statue. Interestingly, it goes on to say, two beasts recorded in the book of Revelation are said to symbolize political power and were described with leopard-like features, wrote Twitter user Scott Freeze. Other beasts were recorded with wings to symbolize speed, swiftness. I'm curious where the artist got their inspiration for this work. So some are calling this is the beast of Revelation 13. Here it is. Let me show you the picture again. This is a leopard-like creature with wings like an eagle. This has caused me to think about this subject, and that is what the Bible actually teaches about the end times. Because here's the problem. Everyone's going to see a vaccine and say, mark of the beast. Everyone's going to see a statue of a leopard with wings and say, that sounds like what's in the Bible. And we're the show to help you answer those questions. Is that in the Bible? Is this a fulfillment of prophecy? Is this the UN trying to claim that they are the beast? I mean, are they just coming out and saying it to us now? Hey, we are the beast of Revelation. We want this one world government that will be ruled by the Antichrist. Hey, I'm not saying the UN isn't going to be used in that way in the end times. But the question I want to ask is, what does the Bible actually say about the end times? Right? Now, this is a tough subject. Number one, because there are several different scholarly views that have been well thought out, well researched, and laid out very, very carefully. There's a couple different views on how everything will play out. Several. And then there are a lot of amateur views out there. There's a lot of people who just say, I read this thing in the Bible, and this is how it's going to look, without actually thinking it through, comparing it with other scriptures, and doing a full study of it. So this is actually a subject that I've done quite a bit of content on. If you want to go to my other channel, The Bible Explained on YouTube, you can find a lot of the information I've put out there. But let me just break it down and show you what the Bible actually says. We'll start with what these beasts are. We'll talk about the mark of the beast and all of those things. What does it even mean, the mark of the beast? What does that even mean, really, in reality? I mean, we all know it's some sort of 666 number that's going to be put on people's heads. But what does that actually mean? Like, what is the Bible actually trying to get at when it says the mark of the beast and so on and so forth? Let me try to answer some of those questions. And we may do a two-part. It depends on how this goes. If you want a second, if you have more questions about this subject, feel free to put comments in the video on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, look for Point of View with Josh Barnes, and you can find the video if you're watching it in some other place or listening to it on K-Star Conservative Radio Network. And then just put in the comments there on the YouTube video that you'd like to hear more about X, Y, or Z subject in this topic. Okay, let's start off by talking about some of the beasts in Revelation and in Daniel, because this is really, you have to understand that when you're looking at the book of Revelation, you have to know, in order to understand what Revelation is talking about, you have to know the rest of the Bible. Literally, all of the rest of the Bible accumulates in the book of Revelation. And the author of Revelation, of course, is the human, John. As he's writing, he's being inspired, of course, by the Holy Spirit. But John is he's succeeding in pulling from all of these other books of the Bible to show this final conclusion. And so it is important that we do not just take Revelation and say, ha, I understand it, right? You really can't fully get what it's saying, because there's going to be so many different possibilities as to what it's saying until you've looked at other prophecies. So you really got to start with the book of Daniel. But let me read you a few of the beasts that we find concerning the end times. We'll start in the book of Daniel chapter 7, okay? And you tell me if any of these beasts I'm about to read about remind you of this one, which is a leopard with wings like an eagle. A leopard with wings like an eagle. Okay, let's start in the book of Daniel chapter 7, as I said. Daniel 7, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man. I skipped a line here. It was lifted up from the earth. Verse 4. And made stand upon the feet as a man, and as a man's heart was given unto it. And behold, another beast. Okay, so that's the first beast. The first beast was like a lion. And it had eagle's wings. Let me show you a picture, an example of there's going to be four beasts in this passage. This is an example of Daniel 11. The first one's a lion with eagle's wings. Okay, I'm going to read the next one. We'll leave the picture up just so you can see the representation of it. Behold, another beast, a second like to a bear. And it raised itself up on one side, and had three ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth. And they said unto it, thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. So there's a second one. It's a bear, and it has ribs, and it's sort of sloped. It's raised up on one side versus the other. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had come back upon the back of it four wings of a fowl. The beast had also four heads. So we have a lion with eagle's wings. We have a leopard with four wings. And then we have a bear with ribs coming out of its mouth, and one side is raised up. The beast with the four wings, the leopard, has four wings and also four heads, and dominion was given unto it. After this I saw the night visions. Behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped with the residue with the feet of it, and was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots, and behold, this horn were eyes like a man, and the mouth speaking great things. Okay, so you say, what the heck is that? What the heck is that? Okay, it's actually pretty simple, because Daniel 7 interprets the end of Daniel 7 actually is Daniel is given the interpretation of this dream. So it's really not that complicated. There's a lion with eagle's wings. There's a bear that's raised up on one side and devours much flesh. and there is a leopard with 4 heads and 4 wings, and then there's this great beast with iron teeth. Obviously, these are not talking about actual beasts, right? The fact that the 4th one has iron teeth makes it pretty clear this is talking about kingdoms, nations, siege weapons, that type of thing. It's symbolic, right? And Daniel's going to be told that it's symbolic in just a moment. But it's important to know that the 4th beast has these horns that really bother Daniel, because one of the horns overtakes 3 other horns, casts out 3 other horns, and then rises and starts speaking. This horn is speaking these great, terrible things. And so this really bothers Daniel. So he asked the answer. He's like, what is the meaning of this dream? And here's the answer that's given to him. It says that, by the way, it says Daniel beheld this vision until all the thrones were cast down. The Ancient of Days, that's Jesus, did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. Okay, so so all those thrones are cast down. Eventually, Jesus reigns. Verse 15, I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts, which are 4 kings, which shall rise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then I would know the truth of the 4th beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up before, whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth, that spoke very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints. It prevailed against them until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. Verse 23, thus he said, that's the angel who's telling him about the dream, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And 10 horns of the kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall give it into his hand till a times, and the dividing of a time. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and destroy it unto the end. Okay, all right. So what we're told here is these are 4 kingdoms. And that the final kingdom, the 4th one, from this kingdom is going to come this figure that's going to speak these great things against God, is going to persecute and devour the very saints of God, and he is going to be destroyed when Jesus comes back. Okay, so in the time of Daniel, we are in the Babylonian kingdom. Daniel is living in the kingdom of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar has already been described in this way. The lion with the wings is clearly talking about Nebuchadnezzar and the kingdom of Babylon. Okay, then after the kingdom of Babylon comes a world empire that conquers the Babylonian Empire in history, and that is the Medo-Persian Empire. The Medo-Persian Empire is ruled by the Persians, really, and it's this Medes and Persians thing going on, but really the Persians are in charge. So that's why it has this bear that kind of raises itself up on one side, because it's a Medo-Persian Empire, but really it's the Persian Empire, right? So that's why it's raised up on one side, and it devours much flesh. They conquer, they kill lots of people. This is true. Then you have the 3rd kingdom, which is that leopard with the 4 heads and 4 wings. Okay, the leopard with 4 heads and 4 wings is the next kingdom that's going to arise, the next world empire. That's the Greek Empire. Alexander the Great, he comes with lightning speed like a leopard, and he just conquers the Persian Empire, and in just an amazing amount of time, boom, conquers the Persian Empire super fast and sets up the Greek Empire. But the problem is, as soon as Alexander the Great dies, his kingdom, he says, my kingdom will go to the strong. And his kingdom is actually divided into 4 parts, which is why you see in the vision that there is this speed, this leopard that signifies speed, and the 4 wings and the 4 heads signify that this kingdom is going to be broken up into 4 pieces. It's pretty amazing that Daniel's saying all of this in the Babylonian Empire, and predicting the next three empires that will come: the Medo-Persian Empire, the Greek Empire, and then the fourth is clearly the Roman Empire, which comes after the Greek Empire, conquers everything, but it's very different, has very different manner about it, and different sort of weaponry and warfare, all this kind of stuff. So the Roman Empire conquers the Greek Empire and is set up, and is really the last world empire on the planet that rules over the civilized and known world. The entire civilized and known world is the Roman Empire. And some would say that the Roman Empire has never really completely died, although it's certainly not an empire anymore. The Rome is still intact, and it sort of morphed into a religious empire under the popes, and is still in existence. And so the fact that there is one king that's supposed to supplant 10 kings and come and be destroyed by Jesus when Jesus returns is something most people point to and say, in the end times, Rome will sort of rise again. It will sort of again have a world empire, and it will be controlled by a really bad dude. And that is the final beast. Okay? So some people say, well, could the UN then be that final beast, right? Could the UN be that beast described by Daniel as that new Roman Empire that's going to come at the end? It's going to be destroyed by Jesus when he returns. No. Well, I mean, the UN could be that, right? I'm not saying the UN couldn't end up morphing into the new Roman Empire. I suppose that's possible. But this beast in front of the UN, you see that? Is very, very different than the beast described in Daniel, right? Daniel describes the beast that is unlike all the other beasts, very different from all the other beasts. But the UN beast actually sounds more like somewhat similar to the Greek Empire beast, the leopard with wings, although the leopard there had 4 heads and 4 wings, and the beast in front of the UN has 1 head and 2 wings. So it sounds more like the Greek Empire one than it does the End Times Empire one, the new Roman Empire beast. So there's that. So explain to me, Josh, someone might say, explain to me what's going to happen in the end times. How is this all going to play out? What's going to happen? Now, listen, what we're doing is we find these beasts in Daniel, and they're interpreted to be kingdoms. Then when we find beasts in Revelation, we can then have a pretty easy understanding of what the interpretation is. Okay, so Daniel says something else that's important before we go to Revelation to see the beasts named in Revelation, the mark of the beast, all that kind of stuff. Daniel says something else very important in Daniel chapter 9. And I'm going to summarize this without reading all of Daniel chapter 9. But essentially, this is what happens. In Daniel chapter 9, Daniel receives a prophecy, a continued prophecy about this kingdom, this fourth kingdom that's supposed to have this one guy that shows up and persecutes the saints and speaks these great, terrible things. And notice that in Daniel 7, it says that he persecutes the saints for a time, times, and half a time, right? This is a time, times, and a dividing of a time, or half a time. So there's like 1 plus 2, time, times, plus 2, plus a half. So that's 3. 1 plus 2 plus half is 3.5. And the assumption then is years. So for 3.5 years, there is this attack on the saints. Now, I can show you that it's years in just a moment. Now, when Daniel comes 2 chapters later, he's given another prophecy. And that prophecy is about how the temple and Jerusalem itself will be rebuilt. So in the time of Daniel, again, the temple has been destroyed in Jerusalem, but he's told, hey, look, the temple is going to be rebuilt. There's going to be a command given to it. Now, he's not told that it's a guy named Nehemiah, but there's going to be a command coming to Nehemiah later that says, go back, rebuild the temple. And not just, Ezra went back to help rebuild the temple, Zerubbabel then. Nehemiah actually went to rebuild all the walls of the city of Jerusalem. So Daniel's told in Daniel chapter 9, look, from that command, from the command to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, until the Messiah comes, will be 69 weeks. He says there's a total of 70 weeks I'm going to tell you about in this prophecy. There's going to be 69 weeks between when that command goes until the Messiah comes. Now, the week has been long debated. Everyone understands that the weeks here is not the way we would use weeks. A week is a group of 7. So when he was told that there was going to be 69 weeks, what he's really being told is that there's going to be 69 groups of 7 periods of time between that command to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem and when the Messiah came. Now, you figure that out into years, and you find out there's 69 groups of 7 years, which is 483 years. 483 years from the command to rebuild Jerusalem until the Messiah came. This is told to us in Daniel chapter 9. Well, this is really helpful because if you follow the Jewish calendar, which is a lunar calendar, not a solar calendar, right? Which means that there's a different number of years if you're going lunar than solar, because if you're going a lunar calendar, you have 360 days instead of 365 and a quarter days every year. So the lunar calendar, the Jewish lunar calendar, if you follow the Jewish lunar calendar from the command to rebuild Jerusalem until, and then you count out 483 lunar years on the Jewish calendar, you're going to arrive exactly on the day that Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey in 30 AD. You're going to arrive on the exact day that Jesus, we actually know the day that the command went forth. And we can count 483 Jewish lunar years, and you come to the exact day that Jesus in 30 AD rode into Jerusalem and was hailed as the Messiah, saying, "Hosanna, Hosanna to the Son of David." That's pretty cool, okay? But here's the thing. In Daniel 9, we're also given another week. He says there's a total of 70 weeks. 69 take you until the Messiah comes, and then there's one more week left. This is where people talk about this 7-year tribulation, because we know there's another week left after the Messiah, another week of prophecy being fulfilled. And Jesus said in Matthew 24 that in the future there will be this abomination of desolation that was spoken of by Daniel. And when you see it, you know you're in the middle of the end times, that last 7 weeks. Now, the last 7 weeks don't have to happen as soon, in succession. They're just got to happen sometime. The last 1 week, the last 7 years. So this is kind of what we're waiting for, when that last 7 years is going to happen, right? Now, there's some people who are going to make this all figurative and just say, well, it's not even, it's all figurative of other stuff. I think that's nonsense, and I think I could prove it. But if you're going to take a real look at the scriptures, as far as a more of a literal view, as literal as possible, then I think this is the way you have to look at it based on what Daniel says. Anyway, so we know all these things are going to happen. We know that at some point there has to be another ruler of Rome, of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire has to be sort of reforged in some way, and that this ruler is going to, halfway through the 7 years that are left, he's going to commit some sort of great evil sin. And then for 3.5 years, remember the times and half a time, he is going to persecute the Christians until Jesus comes back. Okay? So this is all actually reinforced also in Daniel 12 that says there's basically 3.5 years between the abomination of desolation. Daniel 9 also talks about the abomination of desolation, saying that this prince, this guy, this evil guy in the future, which we call the Antichrist, is going to come into Jerusalem. He's going to make peace with Jerusalem. But then halfway through a 7-year peace treaty with Jerusalem, he's going to step in and he's going to commit some kind of atrocious deed in the temple that'll make it no longer fit to be used anymore. It'll be desolate because of the evil that he does in the temple. Okay, so this is what we're talking about in the future. Now, let's look at the beast in Revelation. And we'll talk about, I'll get into, actually we may do two episodes on this because we're running out of time. I want to talk about the mark of the beast so that way you guys understand this. So follow me on this. You may have to listen to this a couple times to really grasp it. I get that. But in Revelation 13, we have this beast. It says, "And I stood upon the sands of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. The beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him power, and his seat, and great authority. I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and this deadly wound was healed, and the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, or the beast. They worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. So they're connected, but not the same. The dragon and the beast. We'll talk about that maybe next time. And they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" So now you have a beast without wings, with 7 heads and 10 horns. And it does have a leopard-like look, as well as a lion-like look. And so he has the feet of a bear, the mouth of a lion, and the rest of him is kind of like a leopard, only with 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, again, you have the leopard showing up, but look at the one in the UN. This is a leopard with eagle wings. The leopard in the book of Revelation has 7 heads and horns and no wings. And the other leopard in the book of Daniel didn't even talk about future stuff. It was Alexander the Great. So I don't know. I don't see the connection here. Maybe they were going for a connection, but I don't see it. And this is where I say that just knowing what the Bible actually says about stuff really helps us to try to get these things right. Now, so there's also a description of this dragon in Revelation that we'll have to get into next time because we don't have time for it. But the dragon, and I'll show you a picture of it real quick, an artist rendition. Of course, we don't know exactly what it looks like. But there's a dragon in Revelation as well. It has special significance. It definitely speaks about the devil, Satan himself, and we can show that to you. But let me just suffice it to say that when you actually study the scripture, it makes you a lot less worried about these kind of things. Yes, the UN could be used by the devil to sort of reforge the Roman Empire. And we can talk a little bit more about that next time when we try to do a part 2 to this. But ultimately, don't get too freaked out about this kind of stuff, really. Don't go overboard thinking everything is some sort of prophecy thing. This is very different than what we're told in prophecy. Maybe they were going for that, but if they were, they failed pretty badly. They didn't really read the prophecy, Revelation or Daniel, because that doesn't look like either of those. But we're going to talk a little bit more about this because a lot of people are still confused, don't really know exactly, okay, what is all this end time stuff? How is this going to play out? What's going on? I've heard about this. How does it all fit together? So we're going to do another episode on this. We're going to get into where the mark of the beast comes in, what all this stuff is going to happen, the type of things that we're told. For now, we'll stop right there. Thanks for joining us here on Point of View. Don't miss part 2 where we kind of hope to answer more of your questions. We'll see you next time on Point of View.